Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of August 8th. And our next guest is someone who's been on the show a number of times in the past. He's an old friend, Dick Simpson. He was an old alderman here in Chicago. He was head of the political science department at the University of Illinois. He's an author, and he's a man who knows a lot about politics and has a lot of principles. So good day to you, Dick.
Good to see you, Michael.
I saw you on TV the other night, and they were grilling you about the gerrymandering going on in Texas. You know, a lot of Democrats have been looking forward to and hoping for some good results in the 2026 election. Things look good, but all of a sudden in jumps the Texas governor, Abbott, at the urging of President Trump. And he's talking about redistricting a state that's already been redistricted to the max. How about your views on all of that?
Well, to start out, the 2026 election should be good for Democrats because voters vote retrospectively. They ask themselves, are they better off than they were since the last election? And with the problems in Medicaid, the problems of the tariffs, the terrible immigration attacks, most voters, you know, as they go to the grocery store and pay higher prices and so forth, are going to be inclined to support Democrats. And that's why Trump has urged Texas to break the rules, change mid-course, and to gerrymander for partisan reasons to get up to 5 more seats for Republicans, because they only have a couple of seat majority depending on how interim elections go. So 5 more seats would be a lot.
Will that actually, do they have hope of doing that? I mean, are they depending an awful lot on the Latino vote? Because Texas is probably, you know, it's under 50% white, and there's always been this hope in the Democratic Party that the state will turn blue as more Latinos register and vote. But we did see in the last election where in the Valley, which had long gone Democrat, had shifted a little bit. What's your take on the ethnic and racial makeup that they have to deal with in Texas?
So there are a number of problems related to the Latino vote. First of all, the Latino as a general group vote less. Secondly, a lot of people are not citizens and can't vote. And third, they were discouraged with the same problems most Americans are discouraged about in the last election. So you're going to have to change things around. Can the Latino vote be mobilized in Texas? Absolutely. Can they be registered? Yes, but the registrations have not been good across the country for any of the Democratic states. So we're in a mix. Theoretically, the Democrats should win big in 2026, take back the House. But now this underhanded gerrymandering is a way of trying to prevent that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about gerrymandering. You know, it's in principle, we're opposed to it, but it's something that's gone on a long time. And Democrats have been less evil on that front, certainly in recent years, but are not exempt. What's your take on gerrymandering from Illinois to wherever in response to this move by Abbott and Trump to try and get 5 more seats out of Texas?
We absolutely ought to outlaw gerrymandering for partisan purposes, as we tended to try and do for racial purposes. I've been part of 3 lawsuits in the city of Chicago for gerrymandering that the old political machine used to prevent Blacks and Latinos from having reasonable representation in the city council. And Illinois is a gerrymandered state. Michael Madigan made sure that we were. There's a congressional delegation of Illinois from 17 House members, and 14 of them are Democrats. So in principle, gerrymandering is wrong, but this is what's being called the nuclear option. If Trump is going to break the rules and get Texas to cheat to get 5 more seats, or at least have a chance at it, It's very likely that California and states that, like New York, may follow suit and at least balance out the Texas gerrymandering. That might then pull in other states in the South. It's a bad thing. In the long run, we ought to get rid of it. In the short run, we probably can't have simply, nuclear disarmament ourselves in the face of the threat to the republic.
What's your general take on the Democrat situation in the upcoming election and even going beyond that?
So 2026 should be a good year. Since voters vote retrospectively, we ought to be getting voters really outraged about the cost of groceries, about the cost of gas as it'll continue to go up. I expect the stock market to plunge again because of the economic problems. So voters, when they look around in 2026 and say, am I doing better under the Republican regime, since the Republicans control the White House, both houses of Congress, and a good bit of the Supreme Court, I think there's going to be a backlash against Republican rule. And Democrats in seats across the country that have been close, there's some near us in Iowa, there's some near us in Michigan and Wisconsin. I think the Democrats are going to win those seats. In Illinois, even though there are a lot of elections going on here, the balance between Democrats and Republicans in the Congress is not at stake.
Dick Simpson, what's your take on these town meetings that some Republicans have held around the country and have had quite a considerable negative response? And I'm not sure if those are Democrats who are coming to those meetings or if they're actually Republicans. But I've seen a number of them. There's a lot of footage just this week about the representative in Nebraska. And, he was courageous enough to go up against a hostile crowd, but he really got reamed. And I assume that's been happening in a number of places.
It has, and the Republicans have been instructed not to do town hall meetings. Some Democrats are doing town hall meetings very aggressively, even in Republican districts, which has proven to be a good strategy. In general, we've done political science experiments, and we've come across a new deliberative way to do town halls, or something like it. Let me first state the problem. A congressperson represents 750,000 people. It's hard for them to know what the views of their constituents are on any particular issue. And therefore, it's important to consult the constituents and to get views. But to have a mob meeting, whether it's pro-Democrat or pro-Republican, is not very conducive to that. What we've done as political scientists is set up meetings where we use survey methods to find 100 representative voters in each of the congressional districts, have the congressman meet with them by Zoom, and act and focus on only one issue, like immigration or the tariffs or whatever, and get reasoned positions. Let the congressman speak on why they are tending to do one thing or another, and let a cross section of voters, not just all pro-Democrat or anti-Trump or pro-Trump, have a voice in the affairs. Those tend to be not shouting matches, but actual deliberations. Deliberation is the keynote to democracy.
You talked a little bit about the House races in 2026 should be good for Democrats overall. What's your take on the Senate? It's been disparaged, so to speak, about the Democratic prospect for gains. But on the other hand, there is a serious challenge probably in Maine. North Carolina has an open seat now, and the former governor is running. And Ohio, there's an open seat. I don't know if the former Democratic senator will run again. What's your overall view on the Senate?
Overall, I think we will pick up a couple of Senate seats. It's hard to predict exactly because these are when you're running statewide, these are fairly close races. They're also very expensive. Many of the congressional races cost for House of Representatives cost between $5 million and $20 million. The Senate races that are contested go from 20 million to 100 million. So raising the money, getting the support is a very arduous task, particularly for Senate. And unless you already have a high profile, as for instance, many of the candidates you're suggesting do, it's hard to go from ground zero to become U.S. Senator. But I think the Democrats will pick up seats. Whether it will end up being enough to swing the Senate, I'm not sure.
Well, I hope so. What's your take on Beto O'Rourke? I mean, you think he's a possible Senate contender again? He lost. He had a close race against Cruz. He didn't do as well as the governor. He's out there almost every day doing these meetings with hundreds of people. I get, messages that he's live in Omaha, Nebraska, and he's pretty inspirational. And, he has a positive crowd. They're rooting him on. He's someone I've met and really respect and like. I'm wondering what your take is.
Well, and one of the things that's happening is he's getting more national coverage. For instance, he was on PBS for a long interview. So he's doing a good job articulating the basic democratic ideals and around the key issues like the cost of living, like immigration, and so forth. So he's resonating with a lot of voters. He might well have a chance the next time he runs for U.S. Senate to win. As you said, Texas is on the cusp of changing. The area around Houston is already pretty Democratic. And there are a lot of people moving to the Southwest. It's still a growing state. As you mentioned, there is a large Latino population in the state. Texas may be finally ready for change. I don't know whether that will transpire in 2026 because of the gerrymandering that's going on.
Yeah, I've been going down to Texas regularly since 2001, I think, to this basketball in the barrio in El Paso. And I've met a number of people who are active politically, and they're always talking about Texas turning blue, but it's in slow motion some of the time.
Well, we can look to ourselves up here. You remember DuPage County? DuPage County was the most Republican county in the United States in their voting. And now it's nearly completely controlled by Democrats. The county board, the state legislators, the congresspersons from the area are all Democrats. And so that same kind of transformation will probably happen in Texas. How quickly is the issue? And of course, we still don't know the full extent of the Trump regime, which is awful, tearing down the institutions of America.
Let me ask one more thing about the Senate. Here in Illinois, Dick Durbin is retiring, and there's a number of people who are in the race. And I saw a piece, Krishnamurti, and everyone except Kelly, Robin Kelly, has been a little critical of the U.S. activity in Gaza, but Robin Kelly has stood out the most on that issue. Do you have any sense of where that race is going and who might be a victor?
Yeah, the two top contenders are Roger Krishnamurti and Julia Stratton. One thing that's very heavily in Krishnamurti's favor is he has $19 million, and none of the other candidates are anywhere close to that. He has the uniform support of the Asian American community throughout the United States, not just in his district. He's also very good on a lot of issues. We had him speak to our retirees from the University of Illinois at UIC, just on the problems of the country before he declared for Senate. And he's very persuasive, I think, and he's very sensible. So he's going to be a very strong contender. Julia Stratton has the governor's backing. She is doing better in raising money than she has in past elections. I just don't know whether she can overtake him. I don't think Robin Kelly is going to make it to the top. She probably will come in third, maybe even second. She and Julia Stratton split some of the same African American vote. So that undermined, if there were just one of them running, they would be doing better.
Dick, let me ask you in general about the Democratic Party. You know, we see, and I think both of us probably have rooted most of the time for progressive candidates. Over the years, we've heard a lot of centrist Democrats saying, well, we can't win. We have to tone it down. We have to go more to the middle. Do you think that still holds?
So there is a split, and my general position has been to back any of them. You know, from the Bulldogs, as they're blue Bulldogs in the House, to the most progressive, like the Bernie Sanders. But in terms of whether or not any, you know, is there this split? Yes, there is. But the most important question is whether we'll still have a country in 3 more years. And at this point, without being particularly partisan, I've backed Republicans in the past on some elections. It's important to elect almost any Democrat. And I'm personally supporting in other states candidates from both the moderate wing, like Jared Golden in Maine, who is in the most red district in the country that a Democrat holds, to the most progressive candidates. So what really counts is, are they speaking to the people? And as long, like in the race in New York, as long as you talk about what is really the problem and offer a reasonable solution, I think that's a winning formula. I think the public is anxious to hear some way to get away from the costs of terror, some way to end masked men who pretend to be immigration agents. You know, that's straight out of an authoritarian or dictatorial handbook. So there's lots to be able to mobilize, and I think either a moderate or a progressive can do it as long as they're focused on what people care about.
Well, let me ask you this one, because you know, a lot of young people are pretty attuned into the Middle East and to Gaza and what's been going on there, and are certainly more sympathetic to the Palestinian cause than a number of people in the Democratic Party. And I'm wondering, how detrimental is that contradiction in terms of our future success? Because, you know, a lot of the young people, they were just so pissed off they didn't want to vote even last time. And I don't know if we've seen enough change. That issue still is right in front of us. Your take on that?
Yes, it is a very important issue. And you can see internationally the number of countries like England, France, and Canada that are going to recognize a Palestinian state. The horror worldwide about the famine in Gaza that's caused by the war. So there's a lot of pent-up emotion, and it did cost the Democrats in the last election. Finding a balance between the right of Israel to exist and creation of a stable Middle East is and immediately taking care of the hunger and starvation in Gaza. It's important to articulate clearly where you stand and to at least understand that the situation in Gaza demands immediate attention.
We got about a minute left. How about some words of inspiration, suggestions on what people might be doing in these seemingly dire times on the political front?
I think it's important to support every good cause, so that if you want to, support the lawsuits, backing ACLU or Common Cause or those kinds of groups is a good thing. There are a number of groups that are organizing around the country, and it's important to support those organizing efforts. There's an effort out of Wisconsin to support the 5 key states in the country where so-called swing states, and to provide money directly to Democrats to organize. Organize, I think, is the key word, and support efforts to organize any way you can.
Let me ask you one last thing. Where do you look to primarily for information on what's going on? What's your favorite news outlet, et cetera?
Well, I end up using multiple ones. So in Chicago, I use both the Sun-Times and the Tribune and Crain's. And I also get the short version of the New York Times. But I have other specialized sources as a political scientist where I can do more in-depth analysis than the journalistic. I also think PBS is very important. Their NewsHour program and WBEZ in terms of radio, all of those, no one source is going to cover everything you need to know. So you need to have multiple sources to successfully understand what's happening.
Do you ever look at Brian Derrick?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, we'll save that for another time. It's always good to see you. I hope to see you in person. The last time I saw you, we were talking about your book. You want to tell people the name of your book real quick?
Well, I have a bunch of them. The latest one is called Chicago's Modern Mayors, which is the history of mayors since the time of Harold Washington. And it's a nice way to understand Chicago politics. The one closer to what we're talking about today is Democracy's Rebirth.
Dick Simpson, thanks for joining me for Live from the Heartland. Look forward to seeing you in the not too far off.
That would be great.